We are in Bridgeport, Chicago, and Bridgeport is known as the oldest Lithuanian neighborhood in Chicago. It became Lithuanian as early as 19th century. The first Lithuanian church of Chicago has been built here. Unfortunately, it has long since been demolished and many other Lithuanian places disappeared. And we are talking with Steven Badauskas, who is the owner of the last Lithuanian tavern or bar here in this district. And how does it feel to be the longest one running it when all the others left?
It's good. It's okay. Because when I was young, this area used to be, that I could remember, 27 taverns when I was a kid.
All owned by Lithuanians?
I would say 11 of them were Lithuanian. But there was that many taverns all together. Now there's 2.5. There's 1, 2, and another one is a restaurant, a tavern. And those are not Lithuanian. So I stuck around, and it's just a very eclectic sort of mixing pot of people that come here,
So you were born at what year?
61.
61. And your parents worked in this tavern and you inherited it, yes?
Yeah. My dad worked for a gentleman named Adam Dalksha, and Adam had it since 1933. And prior to that, this was a funeral home, and it was a Lithuanian funeral home. And that was Radzius. The last name was Radzius, R.H. Radzius, and that was it was a Lithuanian funeral home. Then it became a tavern after Prohibition time, so that was like 1933. And then Adam Dalksha had it till 1964. And then my dad worked, basically was able to take over the tavern in 1965. So I've been here since 1965.
So at your childhood, this was still a Lithuanian district, and then Lithuanians began moving out. How did that happen and why?
That's a good question. It seems like the older Lithuanians, I don't know if they taught their children this, or if their children just wanted to do this, is to move to the suburbs. It was like you were more successful if you left this area and moved to a suburb. So you had a good job and you would move to the suburbs. And that's not necessarily the case, but and then anybody who had a Lithuanian-owned business, if you think about that, like if your parents are in the shoe business and you're Lithuanian, just because they're in the shoe business, do you want to be in the shoe business? Maybe not. So all the kids of anybody who had a Lithuanian-owned business went to school. They want to become doctors and lawyers and accountants and things like that. That's not a business owner anymore in a way. So they're not taking over the shoe store. They're not taking over the delicatessen. So they don't have the businesses. They don't need them anymore. So this area slowly tapered out, less and less Lithuanian-owned businesses. And then a lot of Lithuanians that are just like anybody, don't necessarily have kids. So when they pass away, who gets it? The next person.
So let's say by the 80s, almost many of the shops and restaurants here in the Halsted Street or in the Lithuanica Street nearby were closed.
Yeah.
Like the buildings were abandoned, basically.
Yes, abandoned or taken over as some other business. Yeah. And my father, who passed away about 20 years ago, and he outlived most of his regulars. So if you think about that, all these Lithuanians that were coming in here passed on. Then my dad passed on. There were a lot of bachelors, a lot of old Lithuanian bachelors too. So no kids, no next generation. I have no kids. So.
And so, your father had kids, and so you inherited this business at what time? Like, when did you start to be the main figure in the business?
I worked here since I was a little child, but I took it over when he passed away, so 21 years ago.
So, as I understand, in the 80s, the district was quite unsafe, yeah? And how was it to operate like a bar or tavern at this time here?
There were a lot of, let me put it this way, a lot of empty days where there's nobody in here all day. There was more of that because when times the economy wasn't necessarily the best either. So when times are rough, people aren't drinking. So I remember for a while having 5 regular customers, and that's what I had all day. So it was, times change like anywhere. You don't have to worry about getting mugged if you're inside. And in the tavern business, people don't come in unless they've got money to spend. Otherwise, you got to go. So wouldn't have too much trouble in here. When we did have trouble, people leave when they're told usually. So.
Right now, it seems the district is gentrifying again, and the Ramova cinema nearby that was once founded by Lithuanians is now being restored after a long time of being completely abandoned. And do you feel that?
Yeah, because I've got a lot of new faces, a lot of new people coming, a lot of new people. A lot of people are moving to the neighborhood, and rents are higher, least, everything, mortgages are higher. I live in my business, so it doesn't change much for me personally, except the people walking in the door. More people are walking in the door, and a lot of young people. And that's good, because that's like a young business that way. Even though I'm not a young man anymore, young people come in, so that means it's a young business.
And so how do you manage to attract young customers?
We do live music here. I have bingo here on Wednesday nights, and then we got a really good jukebox. So we play good music here. That's a plus. And then it's more of word of mouth. And there's not a lot of places in this area you can go to, that is just a tavern. We're specifically a tavern, and some places you go to a tavern and restaurants. And there's more of that around here. So they just like me. I don't know. They come back.
Thank you very much. And you will find this Berenice's Tavern, Ramova Theater, as well as the site of the St. George Lithuanian Church and the St. George Lithuanian School on the map.lithuania.com website about Lithuanian heritage in the Americas, as well as global.lithuania.com encyclopedia of Lithuanian heritage abroad.